For a closer look at Ukraine's troubled economy, Josh Cohen joins us again. He's a former USAID, USAID project officer who managed economic reform projects in the former Soviet Union. The thing with Ukraine is that a lot of people who are watching this, they're thinking to themselves, it's going to get better. It's got to get better. It's going to get better. And it just doesn't seem like it's getting better. What's going on?
A lot of it comes down to the ongoing violence in the east of the country. At the end of the day, this is a country that they can call it an anti-terrorist operation as they do, but it's really involved in a war. And it's very hard to stabilize an economy that's involved in a war, especially an economy that wasn't doing too well to begin with.
All this bailout talk, this is basically as a temporary Band-Aid. Because of the war, the economy doesn't do well. Because the economy doesn't do well, they don't have money. That's why the IMF has to basically give money as a temporary Band-Aid. How long is this going to continue? I
suspect until you're really not going to find a permanent solution until there's financially and in terms of their economy, until the situation in the East stabilizes. I mean, I think the economy will improve. It's not going to continue to drop 9% a year, but it's not going to really start growing and allow the country to reach its potential until the situation in the Donbass is actually stabilized and the war ends.
What happened to all the assistance, from the international community? When this conflict first started, there was a lot of talk about assistance. And yes, they're getting money. But besides money, we know there's the importance of investment. There's the importance of sort of fiscal union, if you will.
Sure.
There's the importance of bringing businesses and road shows to the country of Ukraine. And that really hasn't happened. What happened to that plan?
At the end of the day, a lot of it was just talk. I mean, the U.S. and the EU have not been willing to put their wallets behind their rhetoric.
What are they scared of?
They don't want to sink money into a country that they don't know what's going to happen. There's political issues. I mean, both the U.S. and especially the European Union budgets are obviously very tight, and so there's been a few billion here and there, but the main donor has been the IMF itself, and that's probably going to be continuing until something gets resolved.
Now, I know you mentioned a conflict in eastern Ukraine. Some people say Ukraine did this to themselves. They've got corrupt officials, they've got mismanaged businesses, they've got mismanaged state-owned companies. I mean, there's a lot of critics out there, as you can probably imagine. How much of this potentially could be their own fault?
Well, I mean, obviously the war in the East is the overriding factor, and that is something that's been largely imposed on Ukraine. I mean, yes, Ukraine has had serious issues, particularly with corruption. It's been probably the worst managed country in the former Soviet Union or close to it. But right now they have what is on the whole a reformist government that's begun taking some very serious steps to rein in corruption and to make necessary reforms that have been put off for almost 25 years. So if things could finally stabilize politically, I think Ukraine has a lot of potential down there.
And you know what's sad about all this is there's a lot of innocent people there on the ground.
Absolutely.
Who may not be pro-Russia, against Russia. I mean, they just don't care about the politics of it all. They're just trying to make a living. And we talked earlier about this rising inflation. And this is very serious because this ultimately hurts people.
It's almost 50% a year inflation. And if you look at current exchange rates, the average salary in dollars is $180 a month. Well, it depends where they live.
There'd be rioting in the streets here in D.C. if inflation was at that rate.
Oh, absolutely. Probably even well before then. I mean, I think if you look at the big cities, particularly Kiev, things are certainly much better. But outside of the larger cities and rural villages, it's a real struggle.
Very quickly, the rest of the year, I know winter's coming.
Sure.
Are we going to have this gas problem again?
Totally depends on the politics and what's going on between Russia, Ukraine, and the EU at the time.
Josh, I rarely say this. I just hope you're wrong about all of this. But unfortunately, I think you're pretty spot on. Josh, thank you very much for sharing some time with us.
My pleasure.